what is the best way to pay for your property? And I'm talking more specifically into HDBs, right? And if you're watching this video, I believe you are about to get your first property and want to say congrats to you because you're going to be a homeowner like me. But unfortunately, let's be real, we have to consider about the finances, whether we can pay off our flat and how long do it take. These are concerns that many first-time owners are going through. So today I would like to address 3 of the biggest things that most people ask when they are buying their first property. And number 1 is to compare between what is the best way to finance or pay for it, either by a HDB loan or a bank loan. Number 2, I want to address whether getting a bigger loan or a smaller loan is better. We find out later in the short while. And number 3, I want to cover this thing, whether it's better to get a longer duration or a shorter duration. So if you'd like to find out, do watch to the end, as well as I will be sharing my personal take and experiences so far after living in my own house for 1 year. So for me, my home purchasing journey hasn't been the smoothest, but I got to say it's quite interesting because when we applied for our first property, we actually wanted one of the prime location, and back then it's actually in Queenstown, because this project that we want to go for is actually just beside the MRT station. And Singaporeans, as we know, this is the prime location because it's central, and being very close to MRT is a very big plus point. That's usually, from what I understand, being near to this kind of facilities, of course, boosts up the value of the properties. So we were thinking about settling down. Of course, that was like a few years into dating. So because of that, we found this location in Queenstown, as I mentioned, and we thought that, hey, just try our luck, just pay the $10 to get the ballot slot, and let's see what goes from there. Little did we know that we actually got the slot, right? Because it was a sales of balance and we bid for it, even though I believe that slot is very hot. Anyways, so when we got that email saying that, hey, we can go down and pay for it or make a schedule to find out a little bit more, right? Then reality hit, because the property, when we're looking at the sales of balance, it did mention that the price is around like $600,000+. And I was still in uni. I was still studying back then in 2018. So 2 years to 3 years into my studying. And then this consideration came in. And when that happens, I looked at my partner and she looked at me and we were talking about, do you think we can pay for this? So at that point of time, we didn't look into all the amazing resources that's out there in HDB's website, where you can actually calculate what is the loan amount you can get based on your net worth, your income, as well as the amount of monthly payment or mortgage you have to pay. And the reason why we didn't use this is because we didn't search for it. So I'm very fortunate that you're here in this video because we're going to go through some of this thing together. Question is, because I was still studying, I don't have an income, so whatever calculations we do, it's not going to be accurate unless we went down to HDB and find out a little bit more. At that point of time, we decided to write in and say, hey, is it okay if we pull out this, and then is it okay that we will still be considered as first-time buyers? Yeah, so that was the funny part that happened, because who imagined, right, like after committing to go and consider buying a property, and then the next thing you did is to pull out from the application itself. So that's number 1. Then number 2 is that we are looking for a more affordable ones. That was 600K, right? And I'm not sure what income can I be getting as a science graduate at that point of time. So I didn't want to be so ambitious, because now on hindsight, it was one of the greatest move, because I could easily be paying like close to 2K as a couple for this property. And since I'm in a self-employed role, then this is actually a more concerning part, because I'll be using a lot of cash. Yeah, so if you're an employee, then whatever I'm going to share is going to be more applicable to you, because the income, because a portion of it is actually going to your CPF, and the contribution is mainly what I want to talk about. We are looking for a second property, and yes, we found the one that is like more affordable, 400+K. And then we have to consider a few things, as I mentioned. So number 1, let's just go straight into the biggest concern that many property buyers have, which is, how can I pay for this? And that is HDB versus bank loan, right? So if you ask me, right, I chose the HDB loan primarily for one big reason. The reason why I went for HDB loan was for the predictability. The CPF rates, OA rates is like 2.5%. And because it's 2.5%, the HDB loan rates is going to be fixed always at 0.1% higher, so it's 2.6 as of now till I don't know when. But based on the track record, it has always been 2.6% for a HDB loan. So if you ask me, 2.6% can be a lot. So that's why some of the friends out there I know, they choose the bank loan instead. Okay, so the bank loan is more tricky because it consists of a few plans. So the reason why I didn't like it is because it's a bit more complex. There's different packages out there. Like for example, there's different packages like fixed rate, a fixed package as well as floating package. And if you find out a little bit more deeper, then you have things like what is this SORA, what is this FHR, which are basically tied to the floating overnight rates of all these low risk products outside. That is like the baseline. And for banks, they will take the baseline plus a little bit on the bank's rate so that the bank earns a bit, right? So there's a lot of these different rates. And the reason why I didn't go for this is because Singapore's overnight rate average is actually very fluid. It will change based on the economic situation. The good thing is that in general, if the economy is doing well, the rates can be low and you actually pay a lower bank loan. It can be as little as 1 to 2% when I am paying like 2.6%. Naturally, you should go for the lower interest. It turns out that over the past 30 years, the maximum duration of how long you can actually finance your property, which we'll go through that in the second part, is that over the past 30 years, the rates has been around 3% per annum. So if you ask me, 2.6 versus 3%, 2.6% wins. And this was actually another example that was being covered by Sydney back in 2023, September, that between HDB loan versus bank loan, the bank loan is actually on a higher end from 3.5 to 4.7%. So end of the day, there's a lot of uncertainty in terms of bank loan because it's going through SORA since 2021. So for me, the idea of paying a loan, the payment interest for bank loan is actually moving every 2 to 3 years. You can imagine that right now, yes, the market has been good. You have been paying 1% for your property for the next 3 years. Yes, you lock it for 1%. But what if, right, the 3 years later when you have to refinance your loan, it turns out that the rates that you have to pay, right, is close to 3 or even 4%. How would you feel? Suddenly, you have to pay a lot more for your property and a lot is going to interest. So that was something that I was not comfortable with because I'm going to pay something for a long term. I want to know the predictability and so that my math works and I don't have to rely and do a lot of statistical or a lot of different analysis for different scenarios. I guess that is why HDB loan came about, to solve a lot of this issue in terms of the unpredictability and to cap it at 2.6%, 0.1% higher than the 2.5 OA rates. That's what I feel about HDB versus bank loan. So if you ask me, if the last 30 years data shows you that on average, the interest that you pay over time is actually 3%. As for HDB loan, it's always consistently so far at 2.6%. I hope you can still make your decision whether you prefer HDB or bank loan. Quick pause. If you're enjoying this, help me to hit the like button and let's get back into the video itself. Let's go. Let's go a little bit deeper into getting a bigger or a smaller loan. This was something that I wasn't very satisfied with because even though I chosen a HDB loan, the next problem I faced was that how should I mortgage it? How should I finance it? Should I pay all my CPF savings and my wife's savings in CPF OA account to such a way that we have a lower quantum to finance? And then hopefully HDB can give us a loan that covers the whole thing. Or for our 400k flat, can I get a max after taking away the 10% of down payment? We're quite fortunate that back then, when we buy for a property, our down payment was actually 10%, as compared to now, which is 20%, which is crazy, by the way. 20% of 400k is like what, 80k? And this 80k have to be paid by cash or even your CPF OA. Wow. So yeah, very fortunate that we got the down payment to be set at 10%. Initially, I thought, like many people, you might think that, hey, getting a smaller loan makes more sense because I pay lesser interest. Yes, it's true that is the case, but have you ever thought that of this phrase, make your money grow faster, or investing? So this was the thought process that was going through my mind because I know that the fixed rate is at 2.6%. As long as if I can put my capital to work at a rate higher than 2.6%, then effectively I still get earnings from my capital that I'm not using to pay for reducing my loan. So that was something that I really wanted to do because we can look into asset classes that gives you close to 4 to 5% of dividend yield. And these are the mid to low risk investment ideas or strategies that the arbitrage of that 1% that I'm earning from the 4% is actually growing my portfolio, growing my capital at size. While at the same time, I know that the loan is fixed at 2.6%. And as long as I can pay my monthly mortgage through my active income, then it should be fine. So if you ask me between bigger and smaller loan, I would rather choose a bigger loan to start with because my capital is still with me. It's just that it's being parked to grow interest at a faster rate, which means to say if I ever need to use my CPF, I can always liquidate this portion that's in my investment account and then use it to fund my mortgage. In other words, what I'm actually trying to do is that I'm using my current active income after contribution to CPF OA, use that amount to continue to pay every single month. So there is a caveat to this, of course. By doing this method, it means to say I'm getting a bigger loan and I'm paying more interest. And on top of that, I had to pay more every single month. I had to ensure that I have a stable income for the next 20, 30 years for the duration that I'm actually financing this property. Or I have to make sure that after 5 years, I sell at a profit so that it covers away all of this accrued interest or of this payments method. So that is something that I had to be mindful of if I were to go through the bigger loan amount. And on the other hand, if let's say we go through the smaller loan amount, right, it means to say we'll have probably, and this is usually what is preferred by HDB, is that they want you to wipe out your CPF so as to have a smaller loan amount, right? So if you think about it, this is not the best way to make full use of your money as an individual. But from HDB side of things, the financing department, their goal is to lend money and earn interest at 2.6%. But the key thing is that, hey, what if these people that take our loan, they cannot finance it? Then it's a risk to the company because they are lending out money. And if the money don't comes back to you, this is what they call default. And this is a risk that by doing this financing service, they have to take upon. Of course, nobody likes to take too much risk. So that's why they encourage you to wipe out your CPF so that you have a smaller quantum to finance to get a loan amount. So a smaller loan amount is better for you maybe because you pay lesser and you pay lesser interest. So that's where this bigger or smaller loan amount comes in. In regards to getting a bigger or smaller loan amount, I think end of the day, it still comes back to how much you have to pay per month from you and your partner, depending on what's the arrangement, and whether your CPF contribution can cover it. Because if it cannot, then are you okay to finance it with additional top up from cash? If you're not okay with it, then it's better to walk around and look for a number between a smaller monthly outlay for your mortgage. And that ties into the third part where we're talking about the duration, because the duration also affects the amount you have to pay per month as well as the interest that you pay over the long run. So that's why there's always a debate between a longer versus a shorter duration. But for me, I think end of the day, we're going to be paying this for 30 years. Likelihood for you is to buy, hold for 5 years, rent it or selling it, right? So if you're selling it, actually it makes no difference because the selling price is usually much higher than your property buy price because it's a BTO, right? You bought when it's still very undervalued in a sense, right? So by the time you sell a property, you should actually make back your capital. In fact, you should be earning mostly a profit, right? So I will leave it to my property friends to comment on this because I'm not into the property field. But just on the concepts of getting a bigger or smaller loan, end of the day, I think it depends on what is the monthly output you have to put, right? For me, I decided to do longer. Actually, we maxed it out to 25 years for HDB loan. And for banks, I think you can do up to 30 years. And the reason for this is quite simple. By dragging out the number of years, your monthly commitment is actually much lower. And if you think about it, for somebody who just started out working and you decided to buy a property, your CPF OA, right, technically is close to nothing or it's very little. And because of that reason, if your monthly outlay is going to be very high, more than what you are contributing, then you have to top up the cash. So for this, we have to do a very simple calculation. And how do we do it? Let me just share with you some of these back solving methods. And it has to come to understanding what is your CPF allocation rates for your OA account. And by the way, are you liking the video so far? If you like it, do me a favor by liking this and continue watching, and at the end of the day, subscribe to us and follow for more and share with your friends. Okay, coming back, you can find on the CPF website in terms of the contribution rates in terms of OA. So what this is that if you're a salaried worker, you earn 4K and you put in 20% from your side, which is $800 into your CPF account. And your CPF account have 3 sub-accounts: your ordinary account, your special account, as well as your MediSave account if you are before 55. And if you're after 55, your accounts will be OA, RA, which is a retirement account, as well as your MediSave. So in terms of how much funds is going to each different sub-accounts depends on your age. So in this table itself, it shows you clearly how much are you actually contributing to your OA, your SA, as well as your Medisave. So I'm just using this as an example for a guy who is trying to find out whether he has enough OA contributions that can be used to pay off the mortgage. So in this example, let's say it turns out that after getting a loan and they broke it down, it turns out that the monthly mortgage between the couple they have to share, right, is actually like $1,000 from their OA. So if you're to do the arrangement where 50-50 payment methods, then each person have to pay around $500 per month using their OA. Let's say assuming he's 30 years old, right? His OA contribution is actually like 62.17%. We just take $500 divided by the contribution rates at 30 years old, which is the 62.17%. That will means that you need to have a CPF overall contribution to the 3 different sub accounts of $805 because this person is less than 55 years old. 37% of his or her wages will be constituting to that $805. So if you work backwards, 805 divided by 37%, right? That means, right, minimally you need to find a job that pays you at least $2,176 in order for you to finance this property and making sure that you stay in this job scope for the next 20 to 30 years. Okay, so I hope that helps. This is how you actually calculate the base salary you need to get. So I think also day you need to find out a few things. One thing is find out like what is the price that you're buying your property. Second of all, you have to find out how much loan are you able to get, because banks and HDB loans financing team, they want to making sure that you are able to finance it because they don't like the trouble of defaulted clients where they cannot pay for their monthly mortgage. So that's why finding out how much you need to pay per month, then you work backwards to find out what makes sense to you is more important. So last but not least, I want to just share my experience so far as a homeowner of a 5-room flat. So the method where I mentioned earlier on, where my hard-earned CPF OA savings is not being depleted by paying off the loan, right, and using the amount to invest to get a yield of 4 to 5%, right, was something that I wanted to do because the math works, right? However, due to time constraints and my partner at the point of time, she just want to get our new place, and I totally understand and agree with her. That's why we didn't go with that route, and instead we actually depleted both our OA. For me, my OA was actually not that of a big issue because there's not a lot of money because I just started working. But for my wife, because she has been working for the past 10 years at the point of time, she has a lot of accumulated CPF OA, and that means that she also has to wipe out all of her CPF OA. So the reason why I don't like this is because by depleting my CPF OA is equivalent to telling myself that I don't have savings for my house payments in, let's say, anything were to happen, and have to rely on my future and current job to contribute, and hopefully I have access so that the access can give me additional bandwidth or certain runways if, let's say, I choose not to work. So as compared to somebody who right now didn't touch his or her OA, and let's say they have 100K, park here and move it back to their CPF OA, and let's say they're paying like $1,000 every single month of mortgage. It means to say, if anything were to happen to his income where he cannot work, he don't have a CPF contribution, right, he can still pay for his property for the next 100 months with whatever CPF OA he has, close to 8 years, right? So at least on the plus side, right, if you have not liquidated your CPF OA, right, you got 8 years for you to find the next job and for you to stabilize and continue to pay for your house. So to me, I felt that this was a better route because the interest I pay, yes, I do have to pay back to my CPF, right? That's the accrued interest that a lot of people are saying that is a bad thing. But if you think about it, the CPF is still your money. Just putting from your property to your CPF, then from your CPF to your next property. End of the day, it's still your retirement fund that you can cash out when you hit the age requirements. So I don't see accrued interest being a big problem, but more of like how can we finance this and how can we have additional runway in case bad things happen, because right now the economy might not be doing the best, and if you happen to be retrenched and unable to find the next job, if you have liquidated and wipe out your CPF OA, you essentially have nothing, and that means you have to start tapping into your cash amount. Are you okay to do that? Because for some people, they're already doing at month's mid, and from our research, we found out that 60% of Singaporeans are actually meeting month's end need and they don't save. So where can you get this $500 to $1,000 to pay in cash for your property? You can't. and you have to take another loan, which doesn't make sense again, right? So end of the day, understanding how much runway I have is more important than the interest or the whatever not, because nothing is guaranteed, nothing is confirmed. You can see that from the USL, even though the government sector is often termed as stable income, but who knows? There might be some of these retrenchment exercises that happen. Hopefully Singapore don't happen, but there might be a chance that this happen. And if you're working in corporate, this might be more prevalent to you. So that's why I don't agree to pay off or wipe away your CPF OA account to have a lower loan amount. Because end of the day, your CPF contribution more or less should be able to cover it. So if you like this video so far, do me a favor. Share this with your friends, like it, subscribe for more, because we'll be covering more, I'll be addressing more of these money concerns we have. And if you have any other questions, you have any concerns, feel free to type in inside the comments so that I can address to your needs, as well as making this a channel more catered to everyone else in Singapore. Alright, so thank you so much. My name is Xiaoxuan, and here's my daughter saying bye bye, and we'll see you in the next video.